Committee meeting on the 30th of November. Can I ask for any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device muted to avoid feedback? Can I ask for any remote participants to keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, and ideally not to use the camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. Please be advised the meeting may be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website or a YouTube channel. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their Swale or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile or tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Can I ask that members speak loudly and clearly, and it may be necessary for me to ask you to come closer to the OWL system in order that remote participants can hear clearly. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting, including any visiting members attending remotely and members of the public. I'd like to advise that the following staff are in attendance in the meeting room or remotely. Our Chief Executive, Larissa Reid, the Director of Resources, Lisa Fillery. I'd also like you to introduce you all to our new Head of Finance and Procurement, Claire Stanbury, on my far right. We also have the Interim Head of Finance and Procurement, Duncan Ellis, the Interim Head of Planning, Flo Churchill, and the Planning Policy Manager, Jill Peat. Joanne Johnson, all attending remotely. We have Democratic Services, Philippa, and Charlotte Hudson, Emma Wiggins, and Martin Cassell are also attending remotely. I'll advise that no fire drill is planned, and if the alarm sounds, those in attendance should leave via the exits indicated, and the one at the rear, and assemble outside where directed. Is anyone in attendance in need of extra assistance to leave the building? Thank you. Are there any apologies for absence or substitutes?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Chloe Woodford, who is substituted by Councillor Elliot James. Thank you.
Are there any declarations of interest? I see no hands. Does the committee approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of October 2022, minutes numbers 395 to 402 as a correct record? Great, thank you. I just remind people tonight that all questions should come through the chair, not to try and engage officers directly in conversation. Officers do not want to be put in a position where you're asking a question expecting an answer. So I'll just explain that everything should go through the chair. Agenda item 5 is the constitutional amendment, the petition scheme. This has been debated by the working group, and what you see is a report before you that did get support from the working group. And I'll ask Larissa just to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. So, as you say, this item has been to the Constitutional Working Group and it's in relation to petitions. And this is a recommending to full council the incorporation of the changes that are set out at 3. And those are that any petition gathering less than 200 signatures should receive a response from the relevant director. A petition between 200 and 1,499 signatures should be formally considered at a meeting of the relevant service committee, and any petition gathering at least 1,500 signatures should be debated at a meeting about a full council. This change has come about due to the change in the committee system, whereas before there was a role for cabinet members. Under the committee system, it is the relevant service committee that needs to discuss and debate any petitions. So this was unanimously agreed by the working group, and so I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I'm sure it's purely a matter of clarity, but on the first page, page 17 of the proposed scheme, it talks about in reference to online petitions that the petition must include name, address, telephone number and email address of the petition organiser. But I presume that does not imply that everybody who signs that petition must have an email address. Also on the next page, it talks about publishing the petition on the Swell website. But I'm left querying a little bit, particularly if it's an email petition. How did members of the general public find out about it? Is it purely the job of the petitioner to encourage people to sign it, or will the council promote it? And taking the two alternative methods of online or on paper, can a petition be part and part so that those people who are not online may feel more readily available to take part by signing it? There could be, let us say, 1,400 petitions done online, but that 101 done on paper might carry it over the particular limit.
Okay, questions that we hadn't considered in the constitution working group. Larissa.
Yeah, my apologies, I missed the group that discussed that.
So to answer your first question, you are correct. The email address is required of the petition organiser. All that is required is the name, address and signature of any person supporting the petition. So we don't need an email address of that person. The answer to your second question is, as long as it is clear that, so let's say there is a petition for something that is online, and the person also thinks, actually, I would like to garner some signatures from people who don't have computer access. As long as it's very clear that it is a part of the petition, so the wording is the same, it says it's linked to an online petition, then we would accept that petition. So, for example, if there were 1,200 signatures online and someone comes with a further 310 signatures, but it is very clear, it is that the wording is identical, it is the same petition. If it's just similar, we wouldn't be able to accept it. It has to be very clear.
Yeah.
And what I would also suggest is when somebody does the wording for their online petition, their concise bit, they also, if they intend to do a paper version as well, that they're very clear about that. Because also the other thing is we will then need to check that people haven't signed both. So we would need to do a check to make sure that there's not 20, 30, 100 people that have done belt and braces and done both.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Bruce, you just answered one of the questions I was going to ask about the duplicates. It's exactly that question. If you get do it online, I'll pump it up by writing as well. I like the proposal. My only comment on page, I think about when we come to consider the petition as either a service committee or full council, I just wonder, given that in times we invite the petition, I call it petition owner, for want of a better phrase, to come and present it to that committee or the full council. 3 minutes for them to speak on something which could be quite difficult, challenging subjects, may not do it justice. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should be putting the constitution, change it and say it needs to be X. So, but I wonder whether it might be an idea, because I think councillors on this presume, I meant to speak once, but often they don't, we keep coming back and making further comments, stuff like that. So I wonder if on that particular point, whether it could be factored in at the chair's discretion, if it needs a little bit longer or a little bit longer, or a greater amount of time to actually make the case of what the petition is for, could actually be a welcome thing. Thank you.
All chairs do have the discretion to go beyond the constitution. This is anything?
Exactly that, the chair has the ability, if they choose to give more than 3 minutes. When, as a speaker, often 3 minutes is quite a long time when you're having to talk, but often if you say you've got 5 minutes or 6 minutes, petitioners feel they have to fill that time, and that can be quite daunting. So in my experience, chairs are normally incredibly kind to members of the public. And if it is something that they see that they're not done, in my experience, chairs normally use their discretion.
Fine with that.
Councillor Whiting.
Yes, thank you. Mine was a question, a very quick, I support this and I'll be voting to accept it. We talk about 5 or 6 lines up in front of page 18 about publishing on the website and expecting cases where this would be inappropriate. And I just wondered what the chief exec or anybody else had in mind would not be appropriate, given that their petition would end up in the public domain at a meeting. And I wondered, it's what the council will do with your petition, second paragraph under that heading, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom of page 18.
So in the
Melissa.
apologies, Chair. So in the event that somebody wrote a petition that sent us in a petition that said the council would get rid of all staff over the age of 50. As a 49-year-old, I'm saying this with some certainty. Actually, that's illegal. So we wouldn't publish that because it's illegal. Or if they had a petition that said, you know, something that was offensive or not lawful or personal about a member of staff, or, you know, we wouldn't publish that because we would be unlawful as data owners to do that. They're the sorts of things. It is not just because, you know, if there was a petition that said, you know, that the council should spend more money on X, Y, and Z, as long as it's legal, it would be published. And we have to still keep a record of what we haven't published, which is challengeable in court. So, but it is in sole cases where what we would be publishing would either be offensive, illegal, or immoral.
It is covered on page 17. It says we will not take action on any petition or requested e-petition that is vexatious, abusive, otherwise inappropriate, or does not reflect the council's functions. The proper officer will decide if the petition fits those categories.
So, yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks to the Chief Executive for the clarification. But really, that line just says that, you know, if a petition is rejected, it won't be published. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to congratulate the working party, the Constitution Working Party, for the work that they have put into this and indeed the rest of the work that they've done on the Constitution. I don't think anybody really appreciated the complexity of the change and all the fiddly little bits that would come out of the cupboard. And I'm pleased to know that they think that this is the last one of those fiddly bits. And then we can get on to looking at the Constitution as we move forward and ask the questions about whether it's fit for purpose. But I want to congratulate all of them on the work that they have done to put this together, and I look forward to supporting this going full council.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Whiting, seconded. Councillor Jays, those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. But the following items are part B reports for decision by the Policy and Resources Committee. Agenda item 6 is the budget and medium-term financial strategy. I will comment, we haven't received any amendments to this. So I'll hand over to Lisa.
So this is the medium-term financial plan and draft budget position that we are putting to this committee for permission to consult. The report in front of you shows that we have a £2 million budget gap in 23-24, rising to £4 million in 24-25. There are still some uncertainties within the report, given that we have yet to receive a provisional financial assessment from government. The latest info is that will be published on the 21st of December. Merry Christmas for me. With the policy document promised at the end of November, which stage we haven't had that early December, which should hopefully give us a steer on some of the funding that we can expect. As the 17th of November, all the statements are silent on our government funding allocations. We were given some detail on the business rate position, which is why we have been able to increase our forecast on business rate income from the provisional amounts that we were working on in this budget build. Again, there is some risk on relying on this growth, as indications from our sector analysts is that we will be losing some of our growth when the rate reset eventually happens. That's been delayed several times now, and we don't really know it's going to happen. But for organisations, authorities like Swale who have experienced significant business rate growth, the reset could cause us a problem if there were no transition arrangements in place at the time that they do the reset. The report and the appendices detail the strategy for the budget. Some of the headlines, which are included in the executive summary within this report, is that we are increasing our fees and proposing to increase the fees and charges in line with inflation. Obviously, the council is incurring significant increase in our own costs as a result of inflation. And so to try and mitigate some of those pressures, we are proposing increases in our fees and charges. The budget is also now predicated on a 2.99% increase in council tax. Up until the 17th of November, we were only allowed 1.99% or £5, whichever was the greater. The settlement didn't give us any information on the cash limit, £5 in limit. So whether that will also be increased as part of our provisional settlement, we don't know. And so the budget is assuming 2.99%, but we are going to consult on the option of increasing to a cash limit if and when that is published. Reserves are at a level that will support the budget for the next year, but ongoing reliance to support core funding is not sustainable, and so a robust savings plan will be essential for 24-25 onwards. Appendix 2, the original one, and then the subsequently added Appendix 2 to the papers, details the savings that have been included in the draft assumptions. There's £2.8 million worth of savings, in addition to the £2 million use of reserves within this proposed budget. Appendix 3 is the draft capital programme, which shows the list of our planned capital expenditure and the initial sources of funding that we are assuming at this stage to cover it. The full list of proposed fees and charges is in Appendix 4, and Appendix 5 shows you the highlights of the current risk for the plan. The proposal is for us to go out for a 6-week consultation on the information that is in the budget, subject to updates when we have final information on our provisional settlement and have done the calculation on our council tax base, and feedback from the consultation. The final budget will be presented to this committee in February, with an ongoing to council at the end of February for approval to start deliver the budget in April 2023. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Okay, so the recommendations are to note the draft 23-24 revenue and capital budget forecasts, to note the medium-term financial strategy projections, to note the proposals for fees and charges increases, and to approve the proposed budget consultation. Any questions? Councillor Simmons remotely.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for allowing me to ask a couple of questions. And if I'd been in there in person, I would have voted in favour of this going out for consultation. I've three questions to ask. The first one is on page 3 of this report. It talks about consultation, and it implies, Chairman, that the consultation is going to the business community and only the business community. I think the wording could be better.
Thank you. I've just run that past. It does look a bit odd. Yes, Lisa?
Yeah, so clearly it's not, this doesn't just impact the business community, this is district-wide, and that's the consultation will be open to anybody that would like to participate.
Will we change it to everyone then?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. That point has been well made.
Thank you, Chairman. The second question is on page 12, paragraph 5.13, is to do with the staff consultation. And I was just rather disappointed that only 55% of staff responded to the consultation. And I wonder whether the management think that management think that's a reasonable return, or whether they would have liked to have had a bigger return.
Larissa, was that acceptable return?
So it is an acceptable return in that we asked people if they wish to comment. 168 people did out of our 303. So 168 was our target, and 100 out of 303 members of staff, and we got 164. The most important thing about this was that when we do other types of consultation, like the staff survey, we push and push and push and push and push and ask everyone to make sure they've responded. What we did here was we did send out a reminder, but we said it was really up to staff whether they wanted to respond, and some staff didn't, and we completely respect that. So it was for a target, but I think the outcome is a representative of it's statistically representative of our workforce. So therefore, I think it's something that we're able to accept.
Thank you. And it's also a higher percentage than most of us will get next year in the local elections, where turnout is even lower. Your third question,
Yeah, my third question is to do with Appendix 2, which is the proposed savings to go out to consultation. And it's really about the lack of detail on grants. There's a couple of lines there about grants to third-party organisations and discretionary grants. And I had a look through the document, and I couldn't find any detail as to what the grants were. And I wonder whether the consultation document has a bit more detail. And I'm particularly concerned, Chairman, about the cut to the parish footway lighting grant, which is hidden within that that grant. And I wonder whether the actual grants are going to, I fully understand that officers need to consult with the people that are receiving the grants. But I think members of the public who are being consulted would have a point of view as to where discretionary grants are made to third parties.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Lisa?
Yeah, so the details on the discretionary grants to the community and voluntary group have not been specified in this report because those direct consultations will be having with the organisations affected. And the other grants figure, that's our other discretionary grants that we have make to on an annual basis, not to the same organisations, and it covers things like our sports development grants, tourism and heritage and culture. We can provide a breakdown of those allocations, but there are no direct recipients of those on an ongoing basis. So it is a discretionary pot of funding, but we can break that one down.
Councillor Simmons,
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to ask the questions.
thank you for joining us remotely. Any other questions? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. You'd be surprised if I did comment on this. In terms of the actual proposals, in terms of the fees and charges. I totally understand the rationale behind it, in terms of the council funding. But where we have people struggling to do it every single day, may have to make very harsh choices on how they live their lives at the moment. From a practical point of view, and I said about this last year in terms of the car parking fees from 50p to 60p, that people were less likely to have that 10p in their pocket. To have a proposal that goes from 60p to 65p just compounds that even more so. I would be interested to know if we have that figure, how much we actually make the additional change that the car park machines don't give, when people don't have that 5p and end up putting a 70p or 70p in or £1 as a result of that. I don't think that is fair on the residents. I understand why we have to cover our costs or cover the cost of the council. A couple of other ones on there which I'm not keen on as well. Cost of living increases, cost of death increases as well, when here are incredibly high at a time when people are at their lowest after having potentially losing a loved one. To suddenly get with a bill of that magnitude, I just wish there was something which we could do about that. And my final one is on the sports pitch hire, particularly the under 16 for mini soccer. If we're trying to engage with the kids of today, going outside sports, keep fit, rather than being indoors on their iPads or whatever, look at the TikTok videos, to actually get out and actually run around and do some exercise to increase again to £13.80p. Potentially, I wonder if that could potentially put some people off. I wish they could be frozen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. But Lisa, the extra, do we have details on the extra revenue from people basically paying too much and not being able to get it back? We can look into that. Councillor Bonny? Well, it would be there in 70p when you can't pay 70p. I imagine it would register that 70p had been taken. Lewis will know the answer.
Don't know the answer, and the reason we don't know the answer is because we don't charge 65p yet. So unless we charge 65p, we couldn't possibly know.
But it could be a 60p and someone's paid 20p extra.
We could look at that, but we can't look at the actual thing, which was how many people would pay 70 instead of 65. Because no, we're not asking anyone to do that yet.
Death costs? Not sure that's a statement, yeah. But yes. Okay, Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Chair. We have had a very useful briefing this evening, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for that. I think we all recognise that this is a very, very difficult position. I don't think anybody in this room is going to be entirely comfortable with everything that is proposed in this document. But I think the quicker that we get it out to public consultation, find out what the public think is better. So I am fully behind the requirement, which is to approve proposed budget consultation. And I should urge members here to do so as well.
Thank you, councillor Hall. Councillor Tatton.
Thank you, Chair. It's regarding parking fees. 65p, unfortunately, you need an extra £5 to come and parking those down. And also in the beach, on the Beachfield side. Just because we're nearer the sea. Is that fair? And plus, we've also got residents, many elderly residents that can only commute from their facilities into the promenade at Racegrounds to visit a couple of leisure stores. They do not drive into Sheerness and benefit from lesser charge parking, as long as they go to the lesser charge parking areas. But £5 plus just for 2 sites on the island. And I don't think any on the main end.
Okay, thank you,
Already looked at.
thank you, councillor Tatton. Any other questions or points? Councillor Valentine.
Chair, I think there are 2 issues that I want to raise. Both have been raised by other speakers before. One is, I think I'm particularly concerned about the arrangements for the staff pay, and at a time of high inflation, as I'm proposing no pay rise for our staff. Now, I appreciate that we've got the survey results, and we've already discussed the number of returns. I think within those results, it's particularly difficult to be clear that there's a clear preference for the 34-hour week over the 4-day week. Those are both the 2 front runners, but they are rather different proposals. And my concern is that I suspect that many of our staff already work over their contracted hours, and that by reducing the number of hours for the staff, they may well continue to work over their contracted hours. And if we are reducing hours, we need to make sure that that's a genuine reduction. That's, we have to identify the 8% of things we want to start not to do less of. Given the nature of the work, I think that may be very challenging. So, but for that, I understand this is still subject to negotiation with the union and it's consultation with the staff. I'll wait to see the outcome of that with interest. And the other is the point about the detail of the grants that was raised. I wasn't quite clear on the answer of that. So I've received some representation, well, from 3 parish councils in my report of contacted me about the lighting grant. But I understand the Director of Finance has written.
So I'm going to have to ask you to come forward now because you're going to be dragged.
So I'm going to do what you're fun first.
Sorry about it. So I was saying 3 parish councils have contacted me about the lighting grant. I think one thing that's come to light is that it affects parish councils very differently. Some have a much bigger grant than others because they have more lights to fund. And with some parish councils, that's a particularly significant part of their pre-sales. So I hope we will include parish councils in the consultation and listen to the responses that they give on that matter. And I'm also, I should, declare I'm a trustee of Faversham Pools, and they contacted me about the lack of clarity in the consultation about what was happening to the grant we give to Faversham Pools. I take the point about consulting specific receivers of these grants, but I think that's also a matter of public interest, the support that we give to Faversham Pools. And so I'd like to see more detail on this in the consultation so that people can make meaningful responses to it.
Thank you. Because I think the message there is we must ensure that we consult the parish councils, and I believe there is a meeting with Faversham Pools being set up, so that one will be imminent.
Chair, the parish councils to be entirely fair, that has been done.
Thank you.
Mentioned.
Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, we've got an extremely good, I have to say, and congratulations to officers, a very clear position as far as we know it. And there's a lot of stuff we will simply not be able to look at until after the 21st of December. But I just was wondering to you, Mr. Chairman, whether it's worth picking up the question of council tax to begin to let Lisa in particular, but officers, have a look at the way our thinking is going on that, because the budget uses 2.99%. I can't remember how much that is in actual capital.
547.
567, that's right. But the potential that figure may be extended to £7.50 or even £10. And I just wonder whether it's worth considering views on that at this stage.
I think we are going to ask, in part of the consultation is, if there is greater flexibility allowed by the government to have a £10 cap, which has been talked about, what is the public response to that? So that is part of the consultation, to ask, if it happens, what would be, what do people feel about it?
Okay, so you would leave it till after consultation?
That way
Okay,
we'll have some different figures.
okay.
Councillor Whiting.
Thanks, Chairman. I wasn't going to speak, but I was sort of minded to having heard the contribution about the staff settlement. And I do have some serious concerns that we're not necessarily spelling out the consequences of any of the proposed routes on that, so that people can fully understand and come back. I mean, my understanding is a 3 hour a week reduction for all staff is about an 8% reduction in the amount of time that the staff will have to do the jobs that they already tell us they haven't got time to do. And if we were going to go out to a consultation saying we're going to reduce the staff by 8%, I don't think anyone in this room would be putting their hands up to support that. But the effect of reducing staff hours by 8% is exactly that. And so I wasn't clear from the papers that the consequence of reducing our staff by the equivalent of 8% are probably spelled out, because I think for some services who are struggling, and some services who don't at the moment meet their statutory obligations, are going to find it really challenging if we were to go down that route. I'm not going to prejudge what the consultation says, but I do believe that we ought to ensure that the consultees are fully appraised of what each of those routes that we outlined for actually would mean. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Whiting, and that reminds me, second part of my response to Councillor Valentine. Yes, if this is how the consultation pans out, then it is incumbent upon us as councillors and us as administration to have, to show what realistic expectations are. Obviously, if we're spending a lot less money, because we've got less money coming in, there's going to be less work done. But also, it may mean that there are longer waits for some things. We must explain to the public what reasonable expectations are, and ourselves must have reasonable expectations that something that may have been done in 48 hours may take a week. But until we get that consultation back and the heads of services are able to factor in what they do, the specific details, I don't think they're going to be well known. Well, that's a lot, but I'm totally losing my thread with that. Melissa.
Totally without tune, just not like that. Previous job, previous life. So speaking to other chiefs, we're all facing a similar problem. What do? Do we increase staff salaries and then cut staff? And the outcome is we have fewer people to do the same thing? Or do we reduce hours and try and keep as many staff as possible? That was the basic question we asked staff, and staff came back and said, actually, what we'd really like, and what I'm sure every councillor in Kent would like, is a settlement that would enable us to pay a good pay rise to staff and pay staff what their value is. We're not in that place. No council in Kent is. So there is a stark choice that members have to face. Do we just cut staff, but actually that has an impact of cutting services in effect, or do we try and find a different way? This is tried to find a different way. We know that there are some service areas that are concerned about this. That would be a complete mistruth to say that they're not. And what we're now doing is, as we go out to consultation, we're meeting with staff to say, what are the issues? What are you going to find? For some staff, it is just that we will close and we will not provide a service for 3 hours. For others, it's about a different way of working. It's about starting our transformation journey. So I think you're absolutely right. It is a reduction in resource, but what we're trying to do is keep as much resilience as possible rather than reducing resource and then saying, actually, it's fine, we're here 37 hours a week, let's keep doing what we were doing, when actually we're doing it with 8% fewer staff.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can I ask a proposer for the full recommendations? Councillor Carnell, can I see a seconder? Councillor Gibson, those in favour, please indicate. Any abstentions? Any against? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Item 7, the performance monitoring and priority project report for the half year 22-23. Before I ask the officer to introduce the report, Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm somewhat disappointed that they've been presented quite complex figures quite late in the day. And we've got another meeting in the not too distant future, and I propose that we defer the item for that day so that we can properly absorb the figures which have been presented.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Part of the purpose of an agenda is also that the public get to see it. I am agreeable that we should delay this to the next meeting. That's okay with people? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Agenda item 8 is the Bolton and Dunkirk neighbourhood plan. Excellent load of work has gone into this, and I'm glad to see the Parish Councillor Tutt from Dunkirk here. Is it Flo introducing this one? So I'd like to ask Flo Churchill to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. The report before you relates to the progression of the Bolton and Dunkirk neighbourhood plan, and the parish councils of Bolton and Dunkirk decided to work together to prepare the joint neighbourhood plan because of the close relationship between the two villages and the wider parish areas. They formed a neighbourhood planning body, and the designation of the neighbourhood plan areas was confirmed in February 2014. The neighbourhood plan group have gathered the necessary evidence and undertaken consultation on the issues that the neighbourhood plan should address. Consultation on the content of the plan was undertaken during March, April and May of last year on the content of the plan itself. The group then submitted their final plan to the Council in May 2022, and Regulation 16 consultation took place during June and July. In consultation with the Neighbourhood Plan Group, the Council appointed an independent examiner. He concluded that the examination could be dealt with via written representations rather than a public hearing. Swale Borough Council received his report on the 21st of October. It concluded that with some modifications, the plan should proceed to referendum. The examiner is responsible for deciding whether or not the plan complies with the provisions set out in the Act with regard to whether the correct processes were followed. The examiner can also make any recommendations as to whether the plan should be submitted to referendum stage. In his report, the examiner concluded It is clear that the Bourton and Dunkirk neighbourhood plan is the product of much hard work undertaken since 2013 by the parish councils, its neighbourhood plan steering group, and the many individuals and stakeholders who have contributed to the preparation and development of the plan. In my assessment, the plan reflects the land use aspirations and objectives of the Bourton, Underbleen and Dunkirk communities for the future planning of their parishes up to 2031. The output is a plan which should help guide the area's development over the period, making a positive contribution to informing decision-making on planning applications by Swale Borough Council. There are 22 amendments proposed in the examiner's report contained in the appendix. The view of the neighbourhood planning group and the officers is that the amendments are reasonable. There are 4 specific recommendations to be agreed in order for the neighbourhood plan to progress to the next step, i.e. to progress with the referendum. Therefore, members are asked to 1. Accept the modifications to the Bourton and Dunkirk neighbourhood plan as set out in the examiner's report. 2. Agree that the neighbourhood plan meets the basic conditions and complies with the provision made by or under sections 38A and 38B of the Planning and Compulsory Act 2004. 3. Agree to publicise the decision to accept the examiner's recommendations. And 4. Approve the organisation of a local referendum to cover the areas of Bourton and Dunkirk parishes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Flo. Am I allowed to ask if Councillor Tutt would like to address the meeting?
Chair, you may do so.
Would you like to, Councillor Tutt?
Thank you, Chair.
You will have to come forward in case they play music.
Thank you very much. It's been a long, hard road, but with some super help recently, we've got to the end. The examiner was very thorough, visited both parishes, did a job the same as he would for a local plan. And we're just delighted that with a few amendments, it can come to the committee, hopefully to approve it to go forward from referendum. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Tutt. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor James.
Who pays the referendum and would it be cheaper if it's done in May?
Pardon?
Who pays the referendum? Would it be cheaper if it's done in May?
Larissa.
So I have asked about whether we should do it in May, and Keith's answer was that we shouldn't. So I think it is around the administration of it. But I think, if I'm right, parish pay. But I think it's covered by what we don't pay. So.
Any other questions? Councillor Hall.
Can I just be a little clear? The recommendations for the examiner at 1 to 10 present 3 options. I don't think anybody's interested in not proceeding to a referendum. So we're presenting with the neighbourhood plan is submitted to the referendum without change, or that it is modified and then submitted to the referendum. I'm not entirely sure how to work through the recommendations on the front of the report to come to which conclusion, because it's asking us to agree them all. So I guess what I'm asking is, are we seeking to approve a referendum on the plan as is, or the modified version of the plan, or not at all?
Flo, can you confirm? I think we're asking for a referendum on the modified neighbourhood plan, but could you confirm?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is on the modified neighbourhood plan. And also, Chair, if I could just take the opportunity to say it's actually the council who pays for the referendum, but we do receive grant aid for that.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. So can I ask for someone opposed for the recommendations? Councillor. Yes, of course. Councillor Valentine.
So obviously, the Bourton and Dunkirk neighbourhood is in my ward. I just would like to congratulate the group who produced this, and Councillor Tutt in particular, for his hard work and his leadership in bringing forward the neighbourhood plan. I think it's a fine piece of work, and I'm sure it will contribute to the quality of planning in the neighbourhood. I think the inspector's report is very thorough, and the changes proposed are perfectly reasonable. Of course, many of them are to bring the plan into accordance with the existing local plan, so making it perhaps a bit less of a progressive document than it was as originally drafted. The experience on the planning committee, I'm familiar with this kind of outcome, but I think it'll be a addition to the neighbourhood. Congratulate Councillor Tutt on all the hard work.
Thank you, Councillor Valentine. And are you happy to propose?
I am, yes.
And can I have a seconder? Councillor Ward. Those in favour of all four recommendations? Those against? Abstentions? Sorry, Councillor, Angela, you're visiting member, aren't you? I was sitting there waiting for you to vote each time. That was unanimous, thank you.
Chairman, you'll allow me to vote.
So, yeah, that was carried unanimously. Agenda item 9 is the forward decision plan. Does anybody have any questions? Can I ask that you note it? Thank you. And as we don't, I don't think we have no P&R this year. Or do we? Yeah, we do. I won't wish you a Merry Season festivity then. I look forward to seeing you all at the next one. Thank you.